Hello everybody and welcome back to UKSG Blue 2025, live to you from, for once, kind of sunny Glasgow, Scotland. We are raising money for Crisis and you can donate with the links below the stream or do !donate. Now, I think it being sunny is quite appropriate for this run, and I hope you all brought your sunscreen because we are now going to go to Drakodan for Boktai 2 Solar Boy Django. Draco, take it away.
Alright guys, welcome to UKSG. I am Draco. This is going to be Boktai 2 Solar Boy Django. So this is a GBA game that I'm playing on Nintendo DS for a number of reasons, which will become apparent as we're going through. I'll try and explain as best as possible how this run works. First of all, I need to do a reset. I need to set the system time, and I need to start my splits off to the side at the same time as I'm setting the system time. There's a lot of prereq setup for this run that thankfully doesn't take very much time to do, so I'm just going to set the time to 2004, August 1st, 11:59 p.m, and I'm going to start the time on my end now. So I'm going to call start of time at a different time for audio sake. Don't worry, it'll work, we'll figure it out. So I've got a timer running off to my side. I've got about 15 seconds left to do my pre-run setup. So just going to get to new game, put in a nice little password. Good, set a one character name. And we're going to get going in 2, 1, go. Yeah, it creeps up on you pretty soon. So this is Boktai 2 Solar Boy Django. If you've never seen this game series, and a lot of people haven't, I guess, this game plays most like a Castlevania meets Metal Gear Solid. Appropriately, since this game was partially developed by Hideo Kojima. So there are quite a lot of weird little idiosyncrasies in how this game works. Most notably is the fact that the GBA cartridge has a little solar panel in the bottom of it, and you use real UV energy to play this game. So you are the titular Solar Boy, Django, who is a vampire hunter, and you are going to be hunting the hordes of the undead with your trusty solar gun, the Gun del Sol. This gun is grossly overpowered, just absolutely decimates everything that it comes across at the start of the game. We're going to first go through a couple of tutorial screens. Weird little spider movement there. Yeah, the spiders in this screens move pseudo-randomly. So you want to just try and avoid them as best as possible. We're going to slide along this little wall. I'm going to immediately come into a cutscene where we run into a vampire here who kind of freaks out at seeing us. And the sun avatar, Otenko here, who teaches you how to play the entire game and how everything works, is going to react to us being attacked. Gun gets stolen, but he's like, don't worry, only the Solar Child lineage can use it. The vampire can't use it. So then the vampire uses it, and we get owned. And we've lost the solar gun. So now we don't have the solar gun for basically the entire game. We only have our bare hands right now to take on the hordes of the undead. It's less than ideal. We can't exactly use the power of the sun with fists, and undead don't take a lot of damage to just pure bare hand attacks, so we're going to have to figure that out at some point. Since I've got my splits running, I'll actually treat this as an actual run. I'll actually do splits as I'm going through the run. I don't see why not. But I needed the splits for starting the time at the correct time. So part of this run is money management, and very recently we discovered a way to effectively manipulate infinite cash in this game. Like, you have a bank balance which is persistent through the game, and every new day that rolls over you get a random amount of interest on your balance. So the time value that that I set the system clock to, and waiting the correct time to start a new game, makes it so that when I do the very first room transition, that happens at exactly 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds, and the correct frame value, because it's always frame perfect based on holding B to advance text. That's going to give me the best possible interest rate when I do my first clock reset, which will come up in about 10 minutes. So we do get a weapon. So now I don't have my bare fists, and we also get to see a nice little bit of stealth gameplay. So like I say, remember this from Metal Gear Solid? Just running in front of enemies and they can't see you. That's a lot more precise than that looks to avoid that specific enemy, and you can't do that trick in a lot of places, but yeah, a lot of times it's going to be trying to either evade detection by enemies or attacking them from behind to specifically gain advantage. If you hit enemies from behind in this game, they get stunned for a brief period of time and you deal 50% increased damage. The game really doesn't care about if you are actually physically behind an enemy, it just cares about if you're facing the correct direction for it to be considered a back hit. Going to try and take on a zombie here, but we do 0 damage, and then we get the Sunflower Girl Zazie here, who is like, she levels with Django. It's like, look, dude, this isn't going to work. You need solar power to be able to fight these things, so You're going to hook us up with the glove here, the Soul device, which is going to allow Django to augment his weapon hits with different elemental affinities. And she's going to give us the first elemental affinity, which is Soul. So we can actually use the power of the sun now in the various weapons that we have. Right now that's just the sword, but the sword is going to be the primary weapon type that really carries through the game. You have swords, hammers, and spears in this game. Sword is the primary combat type. I'm also going to do a little bit of menuing here once I gain control. Set the tech speed to fast, and I'm going to take off my armor so that I can move faster. This also makes you more fragile. It's the whole like defense versus armor weight mechanic that some games have these days. So you do want to be as light as possible in this game. Your speed is a product of your agility stat minus your weight stat. So now my weight is 0 and my agility is just what it is. I'm going to be waiting until specific level breakpoints to raise my agility to specific values to increase movement speed, because it's not entirely linear. It's that when your agility stat is X, which can be like one of 8 values, you gain a movement speed increase. Right now my agility is 13. On my next level up, I'm going to increase agility to 17, which increases my movement speed, put my remaining stat point into strength, and later on in the run, going to boost agility up to 25, which is the next movement speed increase, and then the remainder of my stat points for the entire run are going to be put into strength to just kill stuff faster. So you play this run entirely as a glass cannon, where you are maximizing damage output. You have 0 investment into defensive stats. The result of that is going to be, by the time I reach the second dungeon, there are certain enemies which can two-shot me. And by the time you reach like mid-late game in this game, most everything one-shots you or two-shots you if you make mistakes. Like, there are some enemies that you can make a mistake on, but for the most part, when you are reaching endgame in Boktai 2, you are more or less expected to play perfectly. Also, I've turned the light on. Here we go. It's real. So we're finally using the UV mechanics. I'm just using a pretty mid-distance and angle to hopefully get about half on the meter. Yep, that's just my personal like calibration to make sure I'm holding roughly the right position. Now, I do want no sun exposure for the next couple of screens, because for my EXP management, I need to kill 3 more ghouls to reach level 3. And you do need to personally get the kills to get EXP. They can die to direct sun exposure while outdoors, but if enemies die to environmental damage like that, you do not get the EXP for that. So we're gonna go into the first dungeon here, the Cathedral. Split, gold split, nice. These splits aren't real, don't worry about it. So first kill, second kill, and level up. So go to my stat screen, 17 agility, 13 strength. Moving slightly faster now. It's probably like not visible on the screen, especially if you're not super familiar with the game, but I am moving slightly faster, and over the course of a nearly 2-hour run where you're just running around a lot, this adds up to a lot of time save, like multiple minutes of time save from just moving faster. So the reason we're here at the Cathedral is we had a nice little cutscene in the town San Miguel, where there's been a lot of undead activity around the town, notably here in the Cathedral, and the town blacksmith has come to investigate, but he hasn't come back from the Cathedral, so we're trying to go and find him and figure out what's going on. So that cat, Nero, is trying to tell us to go inside the Cathedral, but the front door is locked. We can't get inside, so we have to find a bit more of a creative way indoors. So do a bit of puzzle solving here, push some blocks so that we can gain access to this chest up here, which is going to have the second weapon type, the hammer. So like I said, the sword is the primary combat weapon type. Hammers and spears are mostly used for puzzle solving in this game. Turning the sun off again, because I need one more kill here. Again, I can't let this ghoul die to sun exposure. Changing my weapon to hammer so that I can break this block. And push a few more blocks, grab this chest which has a, please, a power nut, which I'm going to use later. Push a few more blocks here, and I'm going to go into the graveyard, where I'm going to need to push 3 specific gravestones to expose a staircase in this screen. And there is a dog guarding these gravestones, the Gravekeeper, which you really do not want to aggro. The Gravekeeper is grossly overpowered for this point of the game. There it is. Just don't get seen by it. You can technically kill the Gravekeeper if you want. It drops good health restoration items and is worth a lot of experience, but it is seriously overpowered, and you do like 1 damage per hit to it at this point. Is really not worth going for. Please get through. There we go. So we're going to start getting indoors and start making our way into the Cathedral. There's a few rooms with... I'm going to kill a few more ghouls as I'm going through and do a little bit more puzzle solving. I'm going to try and get back hits as much as possible here. This next couple of kills are actually quite precise. Gonna direct this to look in a specific direction, face up, and again. So like you said, you don't need to be directly behind enemies to get back hits. The game just looks at... That's incredibly good RNG. The game just looks at if you are facing the correct direction for it to be considered a back hit. So I said that was good RNG on the previous screen, because anytime there's like bats in these screens, they can pretty much be randomly nested at any point on the wall that they rest on. Sometimes they're in really unfavorable spots, sometimes you don't even aggro them at all. And that time I aggroed both of them, but I was able to organically get them whilst slashing for the ghoul, which is the best case scenario, because I don't need to take any additional hits, and I get 2 additional EXP for killing 2 bats. That's incredible. So I've got to light this lamp to be able to get out of this room, so we push these blocks to be able to get to the lamp, get through the door. In the next room, I'm going to need to light a couple of torches and then switch to the hammer and hit the switch before the torches go off. That is actually a fairly tight timing window, even casually. Like, it's pretty easy to accidentally miss a lot and have to spend a lot of extra energy here. So your energy bar in the top left that's underneath life, this is used for all of your enchantment augment hits. Soul hits take 5 energy each, and flame hits, as well as every other element that I'll have later, take 10 energy each. So Soul is going to be the primary combat element that I use. The way that the element system works in this game is you have Soul, Flame, Cloud, Earth, and Frost. Like, it's a pretty typical tree, where it's like the 4 primary elements are like you'd expect in a lot of games. You also have Soul and Dark. Each enemy either has neutral affinity or they are weak to a specific element. You'd expect that these skeletons, being undead, that they're weak to Soul. They're not actually weak to Soul. They don't have any affinity. So enemies that are neutral, they just take plus 25% damage from having any affinity active. So it's better to have Soul active here. And enemies that do have an elemental affinity, they take 300% increased damage from their weakness. Also, going and knocking on the wall there to attract this second skeleton, going to cleave them both, get them to turn around in a specific way. That is actually a lot more precise than it looks. That's one of the more technical movement-based strats that's used in the game. Also going to split here once we get black screen. Bam, another gold split. Again, these splits aren't real. Don't worry about it. So the central gimmick of the cathedral here is, we saw the floor mural there. Nero is trying to tell us to go into the basement, but immediately the staircase disappears. There's a floor mural there that also disappears. That has 4 distinct colors. So we're going to need to find 4 colored crystals throughout the dungeon to cause the floor mural to reappear, and then we'll be able to get into the basement. So we just got the yellow crystal from doing that trap sequence. Place it here, and we see this is how the main puzzle gimmick works, that now we have the information of, oh, we need to get this floor mural to reappear. So we're just going to need to get a couple of keys to get access to deeper parts of the dungeon. Destroy these 2 blocks in the same swing, and push this block to be able to get access to this chest. So I'm coming up now to the first major RNG manipulation of the run. We use a few save and reset sequences in this run, also going to regain energy in the skylight. So this is the main sunlight gimmick, that when you have access to sunlight, and you have access to a skylight so that you can just get direct access to the sun, you can refill energy manually. You also gain it passively, but if you are manually charging energy, you gain it back at a much faster rate. So I'm going to get into this room, and I'm going to do a save and reset. Also going to turn off the light whenever I don't strictly need it. So this RNG manip sequence is so that I can get a weapon that is going to carry me through the first half of the game. So enemies in this game have 2 different drop tables. They can drop common items or rare items. Common items are roughly a 12% chance. Rare items are about a 1% chance. And I'm going to walk into a trap which has a few ghouls and an upgraded ghoul called a zombie. The zombie's rare drop is a short sword, which is much stronger than what I have now. And I'm going to need to conduct this trap in a very specific way. Every action that I'm doing here is to advance RNG in a specific spot, and if I play this correctly, the zombie will drop the short sword, which is normally a 1% drop from this enemy. That looks good to me. Let's see it. There we go. Cool. So that's a successful RNG manip. So this weapon is a lot stronger than the weapon that I currently have equipped. I'm also very glad that manip worked first try, because even if you do the movement like correctly, the zombie can still see you when you are like roughly near its sightline. Sometimes it's just temperamental like that, so if that happens, you do need to soft reset and start the manip again, and every time you like attempt the manipulation, it costs about a minute, so I'm very glad that worked first try. So now we have the third weapon type, the spear. Like the hammer, it is going to be used mainly for puzzle solving. Mainly to hit far-off objects that you can't normally get access to. Gonna light this torch and go over the closing trapdoor. The floor is not considered open while the trapdoor is closing. That's also more precise than that looks. Break this block to get back downstairs. Switch to my spear and enable both flame and the actual light that I'm using IRL. And as I'm passing back through this room now, I'm going to need to check 18 different spots in my peripheral vision as I'm going through the room. You can play this mini game at home with me. Oh, did you see that glint? Did you catch that? Because you need to be able to see that as you're moving through this room. And it can be in any of these different skylight spots, and they're only up for like a few frames as you're going through the room. I do go through this room one more time, so you do get one more shot at seeing that glint, but you do need to be able to get this chest by the time you next pass through the room. Like, you can't really progress without having that chest, so you do ideally want to hope for good RNG for... I always call it RNG, but that chest isn't strictly controlled by a random number generator. It's strictly tied to the frame count. Like, every 18 frames, the game is just cycling through all the spots that it can be at. So, like, you know, we use the shorthand term RNG for anything that's not in the player's control, but it's not actually controlled by a random number generator. It's a little weird in that way. So we use the spear to destroy those lion statues and get the blue crystal. Only need one more crystal now, because the red crystal is what I just got from the random glinting spot underneath one of the skylights. So now we just need to get into the deepest part of the cathedral and find the green crystal. Sidle along the wall here again. Hopefully these spiders don't decide to come near the wall. Alright, that's fine. I'm going to go back up through a couple of rooms that I've already been to before getting to the library. So when I went upstairs to the room with the trapdoors, I interacted with a hint panel near the wall. That hint panel tells you that there is a puzzle in the library to do and how to solve the puzzle. Like, Django just doesn't know that there is a puzzle to solve here until you interact with that hint panel. And we need to interact with 4 specific bookcases to spell out a specific word to unlock the door here. That green spider is not going to spit at me in time to cause poison. That is pretty favorable RNG as well. The RNG is being pretty friendly so far in the run. This is actually a pretty good start. So I'm just going to be going through a few more rooms with a little bit more puzzle solving, but it's fairly self-explanatory, so I'm going to throw it over to the host. If there's any messages you'd like to jump in with, now is a very good time.
I do indeed. We have £10 from Killer Chair with the message, "Hello UKSG friends, I hope everyone is having a great event. Good luck to Drakodan and all the other runners." And that goes towards the Majima Saga, any % bonus run for the Yakuza run we have coming up later. And I just do want to talk about our incentives really quickly. We have that previously said Majima Saga thing for Yakuza Kiwamari 2, and we have Aqua vs Ventus Bid War for the Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep run. Coming up in a couple of runs' time. Now, currently it is quite close between Ventus and Aqua. So if you want to choose whichever one you want to, then please put it towards your favourite character. And for the Majima Saga, we are currently £402 away. So it would be awesome if we'll be able to see that later on. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so we're about to get the final crystal that I need here. I'm going to need to just push this block on the pressure pad to enable the lamp, and then try and get a good turnaround on the lamp. Oh, that's fine. Yeah, it should be, yeah, more or less in the middle of the chest. That's fine. And going to switch to Soul and Sword once I get back on this platform, which is going to take me back across. And just need to place this last crystal in its spot before moving on to the boss of the area. The first of the big immortals of the game, White Daenerys. So the plot of this game saw a little bit of exposition in the tutorial. If you're fluent in Japanese and you are following along, you will know that there's like a doomsday prophecy that's going to come true at some point, and the family of 4 immortals are trying to awaken the doomsday beast, which is sleeping underneath the city. So we've got 4 vampires, essentially. White Daenerys, the sky-ruling immortal. Red Durathror, the earth-ruling immortal, Blue Dvalin, the sea-ruling immortal, and Black Dain, the shadow immortal. So the first of these is White Daenerys, who's going to be the boss of this area, and she's going to transform into a huge moth and be airborne for most of the fight. And this is one of the most technically difficult boss strats to execute correctly in a run. You're supposed to light a candle that's in the center of the arena, either by hitting switches that are in the corner of the area or manually lighting them with flame and your spear. But hitting all 4 portions of the candle with the spear in a single thrust is extremely precise. Like, it's nearly a pixel perfect trick every time you do it. Like, there is a pixel window, but it is not very wide, and more importantly, you really cannot afford to miss hits with the thrusting, because you have very limited energy to use. So, I don't have a specific strat for this, I just have practiced it a lot, and you just need to get good at this strat, is the best way to put it. And every time I do that, she's going to come down and be attracted by the flame, so I'm going to back off and switch to sword and soul to do damage, and then I need to get back in position and relight it, and ideally, this fight is just a continuous stun lock, where I'm going to keep lighting the torch as soon as she's active, and she's never actually going to get to fly around and do anything, but I am going to focus on this for it, because like I say, this is one of the most difficult strats to execute in the run. When this fight goes well, it looks really simple, but this is very difficult to gauge correctly. Perfect. Now I'm using purely buffered movement, where every movement change that I'm using is buffered by using either the menu or the weapon swing animations. So I'm only moving along the Y-axis right now. I cannot move along the X-axis while I'm doing this, or I'll get out of position. So that was more or less a perfect fight, and that is way more difficult than it looks. And definitely one of the most dangerous fights in the run to make mistakes on. You can see how I barely have any energy left, and that was with perfect execution. So if you make mistakes and miss with the flame slashes, like, you are in big trouble pretty fast. Unless you stop using soul to deal damage faster, and then the fight takes more cycles and it's taking longer, and just when that fight goes wrong, it goes really wrong. But like I say, when it goes right, it looks super simple. But I mean, you can try it at home if you want, preferably on emulator, so you're not actually exposing yourself to UV. Like, if anyone's going to learn this game, I always say that, like, this is a very difficult game to learn. This is, on measure, probably the most difficult speedrun I've ever done. It is super inaccessible and super beginner unfriendly with just how difficult it is and how many arcane mechanics go into just playing the game, like the whole setup that I've got here. So, if you're interested in these games, please get started on an emulator and don't use an actual UV setup to learn the games. Please. Keep yourself safe. So I'm going to have to use a bit of a little claw grip here, because we do have to go back to town now. So I said that Daenerys is an immortal. So vampires don't die when you physically beat them into submission. They just go dormant. So now I have to physically drag this coffin all the way back to town so that we can purify Daenerys and finally vanquish her for good. So I can't get out of the cathedral until I solve one more puzzle, which I need this coffin to hold down a pressure pad on the floor for. Please get on there. So that's pretty bad to actually have. Oh yeah, I forgot to split anyway. At this point, I don't really care about the split. It was really just for the benefit of setting up the initial money manipulation, which I got, by the way. I've got the maximum interest rate, so I've got over 3,000 funds right now, which is, for all intents and purposes, that is infinite money, and so I'm not possibly going to run out of money in the run at this point. Gonna re-up my speed buff once this buff falls off by using another power nut that I just picked up. And now this 29 seconds of movement speed that I have will last most of the way back to where I'm actually going to purify Daenerys back in town. Turn the sun on after getting out the room. So, the most micro of micro optimizations is waiting until I leave the room to turn the sun on there, because the undead are now dying in contact with the sunlight, and it saves 1 frame to wait until before leaving that room to turn on the sun, because every time the enemies die, the game lags for 1 frame while it's calculating a drop. So if the enemies like don't need to physically die on screen, then you save 1 frame for every room that doesn't happen on. Alright, so here we are. So Otenko is now going to summon the Pile Driver, which is the huge sun machine which focuses the power of the sunlight and can be used to purify immortals. So we drag the coffin into the center, and I'm going to need to knock 3 of these generators online. I'm going to leave the 4th one offline until I start the purification, because triggering all 4 here just triggers more text boxes from Otenko. I really don't care. It's faster to just skip the text boxes, have slightly lower damage until I knock the 4th generator online once we start the purification. So none of the mechanics in this game are remotely tuned for having maximum access to sunlight. If you're playing just normally outdoors on a clear day, you'll probably struggle to get like more than half of the sun meter filled. So you are not supposed to be able to have like 10 sun at all times, and you burn through these purification sequences and anything else that relies on the sun meter being tuned to a specific value like way faster than expected. That was a 23 something. I mean, it's not the absolute most stellar pace in the world, but any 23, especially for a marathon environment, I'm perfectly happy with for purifying Diner. This is pretty healthy start already. So we are 1 dungeon down, 1 immortal down. Going to be moving into the 2nd dungeon now after talking to the Sun Maiden here, Lita, who was just filled in this plot where like the solar tree had recently been uprooted. Just completely gone. And now she's filled in the plot, and the solar tree is going to be gradually growing through the game again. And as the player, this is something that you are supposed to do like as a little side mechanic while playing casually. The solar tree gradually grows with the amount of sun exposure you have over the course of the game. Obviously, this being a speedrun, it's never going to progress past its initial growth stage. It takes a lot of sun exposure for this thing to grow, though. I'm never going to play 100% in this game, which requires you to do, like, you know, obviously every achievable metric. This is an action RPG with a lot of stuff to do. One of those objectives is completely regrowing the solar tree, and largely because of needing to get the solar tree to the fully grown state, the 100% run is in the region of 12 hours. So I'm never going to do that. Okay, so we're going to move off to the 2nd dungeon now, Remains. Now that I have the hammer, I'm able to break this block and actually get into the 2nd dungeon. So this is the point that I said, certain enemies from this point onward will start killing me in as little as 2 hits. Because I have no defensive stats, I'm grossly underleveled, and I have no armor on. So these purple vampire bats in particular, these deal 52 damage each. The health that I'm at now, if I get hit by a vampire bat, I will barely survive. But, so like even from full health, which is 100, you die in 2 hits, these vampire bats. And now I need to hit 7 of these in a trap where they move around pseudo-randomly, so hopefully I don't die here. That's a little unfriendly, but that's fine, I guess. Okay, so we're going to kill a couple of slimes here. Hopefully going to see a drop or 2 from these. Like I say, common drops are like a 12% chance each. Not so lucky, but also use the opportunity to get a health refill. So, when I set the initial system time to start playing the game, the time is not arbitrarily chosen. If you are playing this game on the date of a real-life lunar full moon, and you play at nighttime, and then you try and charge the power of the sunlight when you don't actually have the sun enabled, you instead summon moonbugs, which can be used to refill health. Like, you summon the power of the moon instead of the power of the sun. And you can use these moonbugs infinitely whilst outdoors to get just infinite health refills. So I said, like, this is one of the most inaccessible speedruns out there. It's because you need this sort of information. Like, yeah, you need to just know that you're going to need to have a real-life lunar calendar, and you're going to need to memorize, like, certain date ranges to use in order to get the maximum throughput in this run. And that's just, like, one of the many things that need to be memorized. Like, this is a very technical run, all things considered. Also, pass between those 2 flames, because why not? Wait for this flame to go off. So, the reason I specifically don't have the sun on during this room is because there is solar wind in that room, which pushes you around in random directions, and the strength of the wind scales with the sun value. And you see there's a lot of, like, narrow walkways and sheer cliffs in that room. There's no guardrail on those walkways. Like, if you get pushed over the edge, you just die instantly. So you basically cannot have the sun enabled in that room. I mean, I have the sun maximally enabled during the TAS, and I just have the random wind push me in a favorable direction. But you cannot reliably do that in RTA play. It just gets you killed like 99 times out of 100. So we have a little bit of a mini-boss gauntlet here. I'm going to get the sword here. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Move. 1, 2, 3. Wasn't supposed to get hit by that, but I didn't move down quite far enough. But it's not a huge deal as long as I don't take any additional hits. Going to have a couple of yellow slimes in the next trap, and then a couple of clay golems in the 3rd trap. These yellow slimes are not a problem. This is a very trivial trap, but the clay golem trap is the bane of my existence. It is one of my least favorite screens to deal with in this speedrun. Ideally, I'm going to knock on walls to bait them to roll into each other so that they deal damage to each other, stun each other, and end up in favorable positions. Sometimes they just don't end up in favorable positions, though. See what we get? Okay. Okay. Based on the damage they did to each other, I needed to improvise there. I needed to get off my damage route a bit. So that wasn't exactly an ideal enemy spread, but I dealt with the hand that I was dealt and got through it about as well as I could have. You really just want to avoid dying in those traps if you can all help it. Go around the back of this golem. As long as you rub against the wall there and are running against the wall, you will generally not hit that golem. Now we get Django's edgy brother, Sabata. I like to call him Sasuke in this game. So Django is the solar child and Sasuke is the lunar child, uses the power of the moon instead of the power of the sun. He's going to hook us up with Element Cloud here after we very steadfastly say, no, I'm not backing out of here. I do want to go through this dungeon and go into danger. So have the sun enabled now as I go outdoors. I'm going to take a little hybrid refill here before I go back indoors. I'm going to refill my health and then refill my energy. So, yeah, you really see how having the portability factor of playing on a system like DS here really helps with having fine-tuned control of how much sun exposure you have, when you have the exposure, and being able to like rapidly turn it on and off at will by simply moving the system in and out of the UV beam. Strictly speaking, in absolute terms, it is slightly slower to play this game on DS because, as some people may know, the GBA frame rate is 59.7275. The DS running in GBA mode is 59.6555. So the game does run at a slightly lower frame rate on DS. The TLDR of that is that if you're playing at world record pace, which is like 1 hour 45 minutes, you lose roughly 8 seconds to playing on DS. I mean, we should really be retiming since the game is being ran on the system at a lower than original frame rate, but if you just care about the absolute terms, you are losing a little bit of time. Like, this marathon run is going to be like 8 seconds slower than it would be on Game Boy Player, for instance. The trade-off is having the fine control of the sun mechanics. I believe that that saves more time back in practical terms, because like if you're playing on Game Boy Player, like other runners of this game, one of the things that I really have enjoyed about playing this game and being part of this game's community is that there are a lot of tech wizards in this community, like both in terms of looking at the code of the game and also just creating physical components. Like different runners have surprisingly technical setups where they use different pieces of hardware. Like the second place runner for the category, Rafi, has a physical setup for the Game Boy Player where he's able to like remotely control the strength of a UV LED that's hooked up near the Game Boy Player. So that's like the next best solution for Game Boy Player, but it's still like a little fiddly and you need to take your hands away from what you're doing to manipulate it. So there's still a little bit of downtime in certain spots related to using that, whereas using a DS like this, in theory, when perfectly managed, it is zero downtime. Like, all you're doing is turning the light on and off, and you do that during moments of downtime where you don't need your hands, and otherwise you're just physically moving the system to regulate the sun exposure that you need. I'm going to take a couple of damage boosts here by running into slimes to get pushed up and down slopes, ideally. I don't want to get... Please. When you are moving past an enemy on a corner tile like that, it's effectively random whether you get hit, because movement speed in this game is expressed by moving either 1 pixel or 2 pixels per frame. And it simply depends on the frame where you pass the corner joint where the enemy is. Do you get moved 1 pixel towards the enemy or 2 pixels towards the enemy? You don't have direct control over it. Also, here's the axe. Nice little mini-boss. Gonna refill energy here with a solar nut, switch to cloud, get a nice couple of chests of spoil for our trouble. Oh no, I got blown up, yay. So we get the dynamite enchant, which is not going to be used for quite a while. The dynamite can be used to set some dynamite and blow up certain interactable objects such as walls, but it's not going to be used for quite a while yet. It is unfortunately completely required to complete the game. You cannot complete the game without the dynamite, otherwise I just wouldn't pick it up. Now that I have Cloud, who can absolutely shred these clay golems for 40 EXP each. This is EXP that is well worth picking up at this point. 40 per enemy is actually pretty dense for this point. So I'm going to take as many opportunities as I can to kill clay golems here, even though it's not quite direct. Now coming into another of my least favorite screens of the run. So, when I first entered the dungeon, like 15 minutes ago, an RNG value was set for this desert here. So this desert is a grid where the central square of the grid has the next dungeon that I need to get into, but I cannot access it until I find 3 stone tablets across 3 screens. That's 2. So the 8 surrounding squares, 3 of them will have stone tablets. So I don't have perfect RNG. They're in fixed spots across these 8 screens, and I simply take the brute force fastest method to check all 8, which is to do a counterclockwise sweep starting from the southwest corner. So I got the first 2 in the most favorable spots, but I always say it doesn't matter how quickly you get the first 2, it only matters when you get the last one, because only now can I actually go and access the dungeon. So that was like pretty much dead average. That was slightly below average. I had to go slightly more than halfway around the full circle. It's not a huge deal. Split, except I'm not running splits anymore. Dungeon's open. My energy is such that I should get full energy before I go indoors here. Okay, good. I do need full energy here, and I also need to pick up this chest that's hidden in this corner, which has another power-up. Enable flame. And light these 4 torches in a specific order so that I can get access to downstairs. Okay, I'm glad that second slash was not out of range because I do not have energy to spare here. You'll see, as soon as I'm done spending my energy in a couple of rooms' time, I really do not have energy to spare here. 2 cloud hits, spend 20 energy on killing this golem, turn around and kill these mummies with 3 soul hits, that's another 15 energy. Use a few cloud hits with the spear to push these blocks in specific ways so that we can put them on these panels, and then use a couple of frost hits to freeze them and knock them down on the panels. So I have no spare energy for any puzzle-solving elements here. Like, with all the combat strikes and all the puzzle-solving strikes, that is, like, maximally allocated energy. I have no spare there. And we have a nice little station here that I can use to completely replenish my energy without using the sunlight. I'm going to use this speed nut here for 30 seconds of maximum movement speed. This is the most optimal time to use the speed nut in the run. Gonna come now, the next puzzle I need to do. I'm currently solving 4 puzzles in a row to gain access to the boss room. The third puzzle here is walk on the floor panels to switch their polarity and make everything the same color to gain access to the switch at the end. It's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to mess that puzzle up, so you do actually need to understand the internal logic of the puzzle. Because if you make a mistake, you can't just do the scripted solution anymore. You actually do need to logic out the current solution, which is, if you've only memorized, you know, the optimal puzzle solutions, that's a surprisingly tricky one to get, you know, tricked by. But it's not too bad when you understand the internal logic of the puzzle. So now we have access to the boss room. So, we're gonna finally fight the vampire from the start of the game, who stole the solar gun. Gonna need to be assisted by our edgy brother Sasuke, who's gonna be generating black holes in the center of the arena to trap the vampire, because you can try and attack the vampire, but he just dodges everything you do. And if you can hit him during his attacks, it does absolutely minimal damage. My damage routing during this fight is extremely precise. There is no room for error in how I play this fight in order for me to get a 2-cycle fight. Fundamentally, this is very simple, but if I make a mistake, this costs like over a minute, so it's very important that I don't miss any of these hits, because I need to very strictly control what his health value is by the end of the fight in order to not get a 3rd cycle. Now he's going to come around this side, and I'm going to get 3 back hits for 6 each. Turn off my soul so I can destroy 2 of these swords, get in position here to manipulate him into the black hole. 2 more hits for 6 here as he's breaking out. Just make him whiff 2 attacks here. Then he's going to zoom around again, get 3 more back hits for 6 over here. Protect Sasuke again. Misdirect 2 more sword attacks. Turn on Sol, get 4, direct him into the black hole. And correct manipulation for getting a 2-cycle. Good. And again, you barely have any energy by the end of the fight here. Also, best part of the run. Best part of the run right here. Glomp. So yeah, Django gets glomped. He can't finish off the vampire, can't bring himself to do it, because once they get a good look at the guy's face, they realize that this is actually their father. The legendary soul hunter from the first game, Red Ringo, who has apparently not been super successful in his job and been turned into a vampire, so Django can't bring himself to finish the job and then gets glomped, so now Django is also turning into a vampire himself. So now we need to play as Sasuke and drag Django back to town. I'm going to use 2 power nuts to gain 60 seconds of increased movement speed. I also... Alright, so I should have checked which tarot card I had when I did my menuing before. After defeating the axe, you get like 1 tarot card from one of the chests. You can get any of the cards from the established IRL tarot deck. The only one that I'm interested in is the Tower, which is a 3.9% drop rate from that chest, and can potentially be used to do a slightly different route at the end of the game. Wait for a specific number of steps to change direction here. So I'm going to try and, when I do my next menu for my next power nut, I'm going to check which tarot card this is. That is not the Tower. I'm not entirely sure which one it is, but I know that the first character, I know the first kanji there was not Tower, so that's fine. Yeah, another reason that this is, I mean, I don't want to necessarily say, oh, this is inaccessible in this way, but playing this run does also semi-require you to learn a bit of Japanese if you want to go as fast as possible. Like, you need to be able to recognize the kanji for Tower. If I was really min-maxing, I would be learning a few more characters so that during the desert segment that I did before, where you find the 3 stone tablets, in the situation that I actually got, where I had the first 2 in the best 2 starting spots, the optimal play would be for me to get the first 2, then go to the center and check the stone tablet, which actually tells you where the remaining 1 is. Like, it gives you a hint relating to which screen the last one is on. And if I actually put in the effort to learn a few more characters so I could differentiate which screen was which, then I would know which screen to go for the last one. But if you're going for the absolute best case scenario, then you just hope that you get them in the best 3 spots. But I believe that in terms of playing the averages, the probability play is probably to, if you get the first 2 in the best spots, just check where the last one is. So you can just go straight to it rather than do the full sweep. And then, towards the end of the run, I'm also going to need to know the kanji for the cardinal directions, north, south, east, west. So ultimately, I know how to recognize 5 total kanji for Japanese. I know Tower, north, south, east, and west. Basically, I'm fluent.
Hey, it's a good start.
Yeah. And we've purified Django. Oh well. Oh well. Purification complete. So we've presumably stopped Django from transforming into a vampire, right? Well, unfortunately not exactly. Also, this is pretty decent pace. That was like 41:20 getting out of the Purify. That's not the most stunning pace that I've ever had, but this is possible world record pace right now. I'm not joking about that either. Like, if the rest of the run is like perfect from here on out, this can actually be world record from this point on. So we half stopped Django's transformation into vampire form. So we lose all of the solar powers that we had, can't use any of the elements we've got so far. We do get a new litany of vampire powers, a few of which we are interested in. We get Element Dark for our main DPS ability, and we also get a few animal transformations. We get Bat Transform, Mouse Transform, and Wolf Transform. Wolf absolutely sucks, is never even going to be assigned to my toolbar, so you may as well pretend that Wolf doesn't exist. A bit of menuing here to put my new enchants on. 25 agility, put my remaining point into strength, and going to refill health and energy once I get out here. So now that Django is in vampire form, the sun does actively hurt Django now. You can see I'm taking damage to direct exposure now. So for the next section of the run, you actually want to have minimal exposure to the sun if you can at all help it. And any time that you do, you are taking the trade-off of you are getting damaged to have access to sunlight, so I'm being very selective about when to use it here. Such as right here, this is the only spot in the run where I actually need to stop to do a dedicated EXP grind. I absolutely need to stop and farm these tentacles for a couple of minutes. 1, 2. Gonna need to keep resetting the room and keep killing these for experience. This is a perfect time for any messages from the host, and this is also a little mini game you can play along with at home. In the chat, you can guess how many of these I'm gonna stop and kill. So yeah, any messages from the host now is a perfect time.
I do indeed. We have £5 from Guess Who with the message, "This doesn't seem to be that obscure European metal album I told you to listen to. I'm at a loss for words, Draco." Hey bud, you know who it is. Glad to see you keeping the Boktai World Tour going. Good luck on the rest of the run. It's always so much fun to catch you playing this game. Keep on keeping on. And back to you.
Thank you very much. So we're not done quite yet. I'm up to 14 kills right now. I can't see the chat, but I'm hoping that people are coming up with absolutely outlandish values like, I bet he's going to get 200 here. Yeah, totally. Because that can be done in a couple of minutes. That's 18 so far. Yes, this looks slow. No, this is not optional. The route does not work without this. This is part of the theoretically fastest way to complete this game. You just have to take my word for it. I cannot skip this EXP grind. And it's not a matter of just, oh, the fights are pretty hard and I need to be a higher level because I need more stat points. It's nothing to do with that. I'll explain a bit more as we get through more. That's 26 that I'm up to. 28. Next set of kills is going to get me to 30, and it's going to deplete my energy bar, so I'm going to need to take a full refill. I don't need my energy bar completely maxed here, that's fine. And we got up to 32, and that is the grind. So if you guess 32, congratulations, you win. You don't win anything in particular, but you win the bragging rights or whatever. Okay, so get this one drive-by kill, so actually, it was 33 routes. So we're going to move into the third dungeon now, Dark City. And we're going to need to play this entire segment of the game as Black Django. So from here on out, the terms used for the two forms are, when you're in Solo Boy form, you are Red Django, and when you're in Vampire form, you are Black Django. So this leg of the game is played as Black Django. Going to stop and kill a Doug here for a bunch of experience. Oh, I forgot to... That's fine. I forgot to put my stat points in. Whoops. That's why that kill was only supposed to be 4 hits, but I needed more because I forgot to put my stat points in, because I'm very good. It's not world record pace anymore! I lost a few seconds from a menu and just... Alright. And just move through these rooms in a pretty particular way. Gonna kill one more Doug in this next room. Please? Okay, whatever. Obviously, I was not supposed to take damage there, but I am about to come up to another refill point, so it's not a huge deal as long as I didn't die. Those dogs are worth 80 EXP each, so it's like, it's not like I can really say no to that much experience. Like, yes, please. If it's free, it's for me. I'm actually going to refill health here. That looks like not very much, but health is a pretty scarce resource at this point, and it is a resource in the strict sense of the word. Like, I'm going to be spending health later on in this section, so I really do want as much as I can get here. So I'm going to use mouse transform here to get through this mouse hole. Get back. Hammer here. Switch to bat and sword. Bat is going to be used quite a few times here. Kill these green slimes as I'm passing by for experience. Now we have the big bad of the game. Black Dain is sending unsolicited whispers. He's harassing Django, extolling the virtues of how good vampire form is and telling him to, like, forsake the power of the sun. So, like... I don't know, Django should just block him, but just doesn't, so he just keeps getting these whispers from Dain at specific points. I'm doing different transformations at specific points to reduce the number of whispers that I receive, but not all of them are skippable. And knock this out of the way. So one of the main strengths that Black Django has over Red is that your physical attacks are a lot faster, so your DPS is generally higher as Black Django, and your attacks all have a knockback effect, so you are much more easily able to crowd control enemies and control where they are. So certain enemies that I don't want to deal with, like slimes, I can just physically push them out of the way and then just go past where the slime was. Use Bat to go over the water. Like, you're a vampire, you can't really survive contact with water without taking damage. It doesn't kill you, but it does 10 damage per hit when you contact the water. Kill these green slimes again now that they've respawned. And as I pass through the next room, I'm going to kill these 2 mummies, which I need to do in a pretty controlled manner, but these are worth 100 EXP each. So those do take a lot of hits to kill, but that is well worth it. 100 EXP per enemy is a ridiculous amount for this point in the game. Like 200 EXP for killing 2 enemies is like, again, yes please. If it's free, it's for me. So these elevators are weight sensitive. Based on how much you weigh, they take you to different levels. So since Bat is weightless, it takes you to the highest level. And then Mouse is what's used to go to the mid-level, and being in no animal form takes you to the bottom level. Gonna go specific ways here to push these blocks. Gonna use Bat to save a slight amount of time by not needing to slide along the wall here, just fly across the gap. I need to transform to Bat before I leave this room, or I'll get another unsolicited whisper from Dane. Like, I don't care, I know how to use my powers, please, leave me alone. Get this key here, and going to push this block. Do my transform before I get hit by the bats, and ideally... Okay, I got a little bit of time save there. If the bats hit you while you are coming out of your transformation, you just skip the untransform animation, save a bit of time. Coming up here, I'm going to be doing, which is probably the most creative strat in this entire run. So, I've talked about how the undead take damage to direct sunlight. When they're indoors, they take proportional damage based on the strength of the sun. So I want to soften these enemies, which are blind. I'm misdirecting them with wall knocks and footsteps to get them under the skylight, buffering a change with the select screen so I can use a specific amount of solar energy and then hit them with a certain amount of damage so I can soften them and quicken that kill. I mentioned that killing the 2 enemies before with as many hits as it did was like more than worth it. So killing 3 of them while massively softening them up with a sun hit is probably the densest EXP kill I'll get in this entire game. Like 300 EXP for nearly no downtime is ridiculous. And it's just so cool that that requires using the sunlight by holding the system a specific distance away from the light source in order to get a specific like strength of sun hit. Is just, it's so cool. This game is so cool. How do more people not run this? It's ridiculous. Also coming into one of the most dangerous fights in the entire game right now, this is Cheyenne, who will absolutely slaughter you super quick, but if the fight goes correctly, I'm going to do the same to him. This is hard focus again for a bit. Okay, that's fine. That didn't go 100% the way I wanted because I forgot to have my enchant on starting the fight, but I still controlled his movements and stopped him from melee acting. So just like Daenerys, that fight looks like absolutely nothing when it's executed correctly, but this is one of the most dangerous fights in the run if you let Cheyenne start acting. But by doing certain amounts of damage while he's on different parts of floor tiles, you're controlling where he runs and he just doesn't really get to do anything. Going to be refilling energy here, letting my life get pretty low. And I'm also going to now take this warp to activate a warp that I can use to get from the start to the midpoint of the dungeon. And I'm going to now use a warp leaf to leave the dungeon. And I'm going to return back to town. So, this has been a pretty good run so far. This is pretty nice pace. I have had so many runs in this position where I've been on really nice pace, coming up to like around about the midpoint of the run. But here's where we do the biggest RNG manipulation of the run, where I need to do a specific weapon forge to get effectively a post-game powered weapon, which is normally supposed to be basically entirely impossible to craft at this point. But I need to use a extremely precise RNG manipulation with a soft reset sequence, and I need to use an external timer, which I have up on my laptop off to the side, so that from soft reset I can hit an 8-frame window for this forge confirmation. Oh, I am not ready to do the forge. I need to menu these. Yeah. So I'm going to do my first forge here with these 2 swords to just make a trash sword. This is the ingredient weapon I'm going to use for the RNG forge. So this forge is just nothing really. You see, sun level again is relevant for this. It affects the speed of the cursor. All I really need is 5 hits there to get this ingredient weapon. But once I have these weapons, I'm going to reset the room. And I'm going to do a save and reset, and I'm going to use an external timer so that I can hopefully time to an 8-frame window. From soft reset, I'm aiming to get back to this screen and confirm my next forge in a correct 8-frame window so that I can get a grossly overpowered weapon. Like the weapon that is displayed in the predicted result from the forge. If I do this manip correctly, it is not the weapon that I'll actually get from the forge. So save and reset, and alright, here we go. This is big crunch time for world record pace. Okay, my timer is now running off to the side. I have 30 seconds left to get back to the screen. I also need to set a specific date and time here. This does affect the RNG minute because it affects how many lag frames you get. I'm using the sun at a specific strength once I get back into the game. I've got 15 seconds left. So if I've timed that correctly, exactly 15 hits here will cause me to get not the white sword that was displayed as the predicted result from this forge. I've also missed a great hit here, but doesn't really matter. If you get all 15 great hits here, it extends the frame window from 8 to 12, but that doesn't necessarily help if you were late on... If you were like early on the whole window, it only extends the end of the window, and you never rely for having the 12 frame window. You ideally just want to hit the 8 frame window. So here is crunch time. If we get a screen flash and I get a black sword, that is a successful manipulation, and this is confirmed potential world record pace. Oh boy. Okay, first try katana manipulation.
I have a very topical donation for that. We have £20 from Argic. It says, potential for a world record just needs to be perfect, said Drakodan casually. And hey, you went ahead and got the manip, so...
Yeah. Is this a system where I'm allowed like one swear word, or is there a swear jar system in place or something?
And Mike's on the room, go ahead. Nah, but
I was gonna say let's effing go, but you know.
We'll allow that. That did go towards Ventus for Kingdoms Heart 2 and the Majima Saga any % bonus run. So keep putting your donations towards those incentives. Make sure to use !donate.
Okay, so like, yeah, I'm 100% not joking that right now, if the rest of the run is clean, this can actually go on to be world record from here. But there is a lot between here and the end of the run, so I'm not going to get excited quite yet. All I'm going to say is like I said, when I was coming up to the manip there, I've had so many runs where I've been like substantially ahead, and then I just did not get katana manip first try. And every time you fail the manip, it costs in the region of 90 seconds to retry the manip. So it's like, if you're going for world record attempts in this game, this is one of those runs where it's like, hey, play for nearly an hour perfectly to get up to this point, and then you have this very difficult manipulation, which if you don't get it first try, you can just reset and try again. You get to try it again in an hour. Like, I'd really love it if that manip was at the start of the game, but we're not quite that lucky, so it's like, yeah, you just gotta play through a very difficult run for like nearly an hour in order to get a single attempt at a RNG manipulation, and then just don't miss it. Like, skill issue, just what are you doing? Just get it right. It's 8 frames. It's a whole fraction of a second. Why can't you hit that consistently? So now we have the second Immortal, Red Durathor, the Earth Rolling Immortal. I'm going to use the start of the fight to menu so I can put on my new shiny weapon, the Katana. I'm going to wait to see where she spawns here first. That is really unfriendly, but okay. Don't get everything. Put in my stat points as well. That's fine. So this is also the reason why I needed to do that EXP grind on the Dark Roots before coming into this dungeon. So weapons in this game are level locked. I mentioned that this is a grossly overpowered weapon, which you are not supposed to have at this point in the game. The other system that the game uses to make sure that you can't just massively out-tech and be massively overpowered with weapons is weapons require a minimum level to equip. I cannot equip that weapon without being level 17. And you are not going to be close to level 17 unless you do an EXP grind at that point. Also, this fight is nearly over at this point. Durathor is supposed to be a pretty long and extended fight, but the Katana just absolutely shreds her. Like, so let me put it in this perspective. Before the Katana was included in the any % route, the second half of the run was a lot slower. Doing the manipulation for the Katana overall is in the region of like 2 minutes. Like going back to town and then doing the forges and doing the soft reset sequence and etc. That's like in the region of 2 minutes. On the Durathor fight alone, the Katana saves over 1 minute. And that's just for one fight, and it continues to save time throughout the entire second half of the run. Like, this is going to carry me through the entire rest of the game. I don't change my weapons from this point onwards. This is also the only segment where I have to do a full, like, unboosted coffin drag. Black Django cannot use solar fruits to buff himself, like using the power nut to move faster. They just make Black Django sick. They give you a debuff for a while where you just have blurry vision, so can't use that, just have to use the normal drag speed. I have been able to expedite this slightly by putting my stat points in before I started dragging the coffin, so a relatively recent discovery from the Japanese runner Beige was that the coffin drag speed in this game is variable, and it depends on your strength stat plus your agility stat. The TLDR being that if your strength and agility is 75 or higher, you'll get a coffin drag speed at this point, and the EXP route is such that I get 17 before Durathor so I can equip the katana, and then I get level 18 after Durathor, which gives me 3 more stat points so I can get up to 50 strength and 25 agility, which is precisely 75. So I'm doing another save and reset sequence here. This is not for an RNG manipulation, this is purely to save time. So I solved most of the puzzles there, and then I left the coffin behind entirely. Also, I just hit an accidental frame perfect input to save 2 seconds on soft resetting. Very nice. You don't always get that. It's just, you just mash A, and if you mash on the right frame, you skip one of the screens here. So I left the coffin behind. The first thing that I did when I get Black Django after the previous dungeon was I went to the coffin shop and I bought a new coffin. I bought the Living Coffin Monster Elephant, which is the only coffin in the game which can move under its own power. Like, you can sleep as Black Django inside your coffin. You can use Elephant to move around. Whilst it's got an immortal inside it, Elephant can move around on its own, and the implication of that is that if you just leave the coffin behind after solving the puzzles, and you just then leave the dungeon and reset the system clock, and you move the date forward, the coffin just walks back to town on its own. So you just completely skip the backtrack sequence, and this is going to be the theme for the rest of the game. After this Purify, there are 2 more Immortals, and we just skip the backtrack sequences entirely. We destroy the Immortals, put them in the coffin, then we just leave the coffin behind, go back to town, change the system time to move it forward, and then we just go to the pile driver screen, and the coffin is just there, ready to be purified. So you save so much time, even with the save and reset sequences. It is much faster to just leave the coffin behind. And now we have, like, anime cutscene power where Django remembers the power of the sun and friendship and everything, so is able to exercise himself of his vampire form to an extent where he's now able to freely change between red and black forms. So now we're red form, going to put Sol back on so we can do this purification. Going to focus a little bit here to make sure I'm knocking the Immortal back into the coffin at the right times and avoid her counterattacks. This is where the Immortals start really fighting back harder during the purifications. Like, from this point on, you can, like, legitimately die during the purifications because they fight back a lot harder. But that's a normal Purify, that's totally fine. And we're going to get a little more cutscene here where the townspeople are celebrating having Django back, spirits are pretty high, and we need to figure out what to do next. So the next dungeon is going to be the Aqueduct, which we can go straight to the Aqueduct at this point, but we can't actually get inside it. There's a door inside the Aqueduct which is sealed by 3 tarot cards in different areas of the world. So we're going to need to go on a bit of a scavenger hunt and find 3 tarot cards in the previous dungeon. This is a huge backtrack sequence, but it is made a lot faster by the fact that I'm now going to visit Cheyenne at the weapon shop, and he's going to give me the dash magic. This is the single most broken button in this game. I mentioned before that none of the mechanics that use the solar gauge in this game are remotely tuned for having access to maximum sunlight. Like, the developers did not assume that you would be able to safely max out the sun meter, because that's a truly dangerous amount of UV exposure. So stuff is tuned for, like, oh, if you have like half the sun bar, that's quite a lot. That's a lot of sun power, so we'll just give you a pretty good boost. The dash magic scales with the sun exposure level. So the more sun exposure you have, the faster you can dash around. So as soon as I get the dash button, I'm going to put it on my action bar. It's going to stay there for the entire run, and I'm going to be using the dash button about 4 times per second for the remainder of the run, as much as I can. And the dash speed that you're going to see here after I put it on, this is the movement speed for more or less the entire rest of the game. Yes, this is pretty difficult to control. No, I don't really focus on having super optimal movement with the dash. It's not very practical. So this is how fast you can move through the entire rest of the game. With normal movement, I try and be as optimal as possible, trying to cut corners extremely tight and be very, very optimal with my lines. With the dash, I'm content with really moving in the correct direction for each dash. So I'm going to take a quick detour here and destroy one dark root here that's guarding this optional dungeon. I'm not going into the optional dungeon. I just want to... Please? I just want to get this root out of the way because having that root killed is the condition for changing the state of this outdoor room to make some different enemies spawn. There's now going to be, instead of slimes, there's going to be mummies that spawn on the screen. And I'm going to kill a couple of them the next couple of times I go through the screen in order to get some EXP. It's the same mummies in the previous dungeon that took a lot of hits, but now that I have Red Django again and I'm able to use Sol again, I can just one-shot these from behind now. And 100 per kill is still a very healthy amount. So like I say, that was like super not optimal movement, but I mean, if you can do that optimally every time, then you're better at movement in this game than I am. Gonna go back to the cathedral for the first tarot card that we need. Oh, please. Yeah, it's pretty difficult to use the dash optimally. Gonna stop on the next screen to get another warp leaf in this chest that has respawned. I don't want that optional pickup from the enemy, thank you. Gonna put on one of my new powers, grow here, so we can grow the lily pad to get over here. Oh, that's... I mean, that's not gonna get me killed, but I really did not need the 58 damage there. Okay, got one tarot card. Use a warp leaf to instantly leave. Dash through to the central pile driver screen again, and I'm going to kill the 4 dark roots that are now on this screen. And having all 4 of these roots dead at this point is going to leave them permanently disabled for the rest of the game, which is very convenient because this screen is like a central hub for the rest of the game. Out of pure abundance of caution, I'm also going to refill my life there. Like, it only takes a couple of seconds to do a life refill, and obviously if I'm trying to go as fast as possible, I avoid doing it because that time adds up, but for a marathon run, it's really silly to not take the health refill when it's right there. So going back to Dark City, need to take the path that I previously took to get to Red Durathor, and just take the backtrack, the coffin drag sequence that I previously took. And now that I have Red Django again, there's a new puzzle I'm going to be able to do with the different elemental powers. Please? Oh my god, that was awful. Alright. So, the rooms that I was dragging the coffin through, once again, there's a lot of sheer cliffs in this in these rooms, so some of these cliff edges, they just kill you if you accidentally move over them. So, just don't do that while you're dashing quickly. Just move in the right directions. What are you doing? Okay, so here we go. Need to put on my full spread of primary elements. I need to manipulate the elements in such a way. I need to use Earth to delete this block and use Cloud to push these remaining blocks around so that I can push them onto the pressure pads in the corner of the room. Use Frost with a central hit to hit both of them at the same time. Gonna have just enough lifespan left on my Solar Nut from the start of the game to be able to use that. Yeah, another little arcane mechanic that I never really got to explain is that all of your fruit items in this game are perishable. They have a lifespan. The longer that they're in the inventory when you have the sun up, these items rot and they eventually become unusable. And that also scales with the sun strength. So the more sun exposure you have, the faster your items rot. So generally, if you're playing on good pace, you have just enough time to reach that point before that specific solar fruit rots. I did not think that I was going to be close enough to that mummy to get hit there. That's unfortunate. That death only costs a few seconds, but, you know, ideally... What am I doing? Oh my god. Alright. I'm going to actually do the strat correctly this time. No, I'm not. Thankfully, all of these deaths, they only cost like a few seconds each. And with the amount of money that I have, like effectively at this point I have like infinite cash. So this is not endangering the ability to finish the run all. That's just really sloppy to take back-to-back deaths like that. Probably not world record pace anymore. But it's fine. So we have the second tarot card now, and we get more story exposition. It's fine. And as soon as we get control, going to transform back to red Django. Menu to put on a slightly different element spread. Going to overwrite Sol with Dark and Mouse with Dynamite. Use another Warp Leaf to get out of here. I'm going to go back to Remains, which was the second dungeon that I did. Which is where the final tarot card is. Very laggy room here, so I'm just going to be mashing the dash key to try and have good uptime. It's fine. So in the next room, I'm going to be using Dynamite to destroy a thin wall so that I can gain access to the last tarot card here. Yeah, pretty rapid menuing when you are going through these sections like that. So you can see there, my starting items have now rotted. So when I used the Solar Nut like 2 minutes ago, that's the sort of time margin that you're working with. Like I say, if you're playing on good pace, you have barely enough time to be able to use the Solar Fruit when you need it before your inventory actually rots. Disabling the sun before I leave the screen because I need to get 3 kills here on mummies in order to get 300 EXP. This next kill should get me a level up. I'm also going to refill my health here. Complete caution here. So this should get me a level up. Yay. I know my EXP route. And now I move on to the Aqueduct. So now that I have the 3 tarot cards, I can actually open this door. But then Sasuke comes and warns us that that's not actually our father who's actually regained his senses. Like, he's being possessed by the, you know, big bad of the story. Again, if you're fluent in Japanese, then you will be able to be actually following the story as it's going along. So, lucky you. So we need to get through a couple of traps here in the Aqueduct. So the Aqueduct is by far the shortest dungeon in the game. Like, the whole length of this segment of the game is the scavenger sequence that we just did. But the dungeon itself is just a couple of traps back to back before going straight into the boss fight. Put on my armor again, and no, I did not want to put that over dash, thank you. Put that over Sol, put my stat points in. So now that I have the dash, the dashing speed completely ignores what your armor is, so at this point, I may as well put my starting armor back on so I'm a little more durable. Like, while I'm not dashing around, it is slightly lowering my walking speed, but it's not super relevant, and like 90% of the time you're using the dash to move around anyway, so this does give me a little bit more durability in some of these combat sequences, but this is still firmly in the territory of, like, most stuff will kill you in as little as 2 hits. Refill my energy here and transform to Dark before going into this trap. So I mentioned near the start of the run that skeletons do not have a an elemental weakness. They have neutral affinity, which means they actually take just as much damage from Dark as they do from any other element. So Black Django is able to use Dark to much more effectively crowd control these things. Like this, it's much more effective to just use Black Django for this fight than it is to use Red Django. Okay, so I was not exactly supposed to get hit there. I'm now at a pretty dangerous health level. And coming into a particularly dangerous fight where I'm going to have to be multitasking and managing a couple of different things here. So this is going to be the 3rd Immortal, the Sea-Ruling Immortal, Blue Dvalin. And this is the most RNG-dependent fight in the game, where the fight is always going to start with 2 tentacles being at random points around the arena, which I'm going to be trying to hit with Sword and Flame is her weakness. If the 2 tentacles spawn together, you can cleave them for double damage, but that's very RNG. Since my health is very low, I also need to make sure to not get hit at all. And ideally, if I have like a single second or more of downtime in the fight, I'll be trying to refill health on the central skylight, but it's not a guarantee that I'll actually have a full second of downtime, so I kind of need to just play by ear and keep track of multiple things going on in this fight at once. So, yeah. In my actual PB splits, I have about 30 seconds of time save available on this fight. Like, in my PB, I had an absolutely terrible fight here. So, if I'm ever like, oh, I'm like 20 seconds behind, I can be ahead on this fight just by getting a good fight, but let's see what I get here. That is not going to be cleavable. How was I not hitting both tentacles there? Are you kidding? Whatever. That's still overall a pretty good fight. And she's close. That was a good fight overall. She didn't really get to do much of anything. The fight only took a couple of cycles, and I didn't get any like intermediary cycles. That was pretty good. I don't know exactly what my pace is, especially after the deaths that I accidentally took in Dark City, but I mean, it's not a terrible run so far. We'll kind of see where it goes. Whoops, that's not what I was supposed to use. So, as I mentioned before, I'm just going to leave the coffin behind at this point. Yeah, I got a random weapon drop, which I don't need. I'm not going to put that on. Going to go to the clock tower here and reset the system time. So, once per, like, 24-hour game session, you can use the clock tower here to reset the system time. This is much faster than doing a save and reset sequence, so now that I'm here, I can just use this to move the date forward by 1 month. You can organically move the date forward to the next full moon date, so I still have access to moonbugs, and the coffin is now back in town. Gonna visit the item shop, and I'm gonna do my big shop for the game. Gonna get rid of all the items I don't need, I'm gonna fill up my inventory, and this is gonna be the inventory I have for the entire rest of the game. No, I don't need that. So my inventory is completely chock full now, and I am going to use basically this entire inventory throughout the last 2 dungeons. After this Purify, I'm going to be going into Spiral Tower, which is definitely the most engaging part of the run to both play and watch, so look forward to that for sure. And then once we go into the final dungeon, Undead Zone, it is a underground dungeon where once you get past the first floor, you do not have access to skylights at all. You only have solar stations and your inventory for refilling your health and energy. Gonna misdirect the bubble stream when it comes out in a couple of seconds here. Oh, where's she going? That's pretty crappy RNG, but whatever. Yeah, not a particularly good Purify there. I mean, it's still pretty fast, but it's supposed to be faster than that, but you don't have control of which generator she goes to, and she was in the middle of a bubble stream. That's just kind of random. Sometimes you lose a couple of seconds on this purification, and that's what happened there. It's not always exactly the same. So now we're going to be going to Spiral Tower. Like I say, this is definitely my favorite part of the run to play. You rapidly switch control between the 2 brothers here, Django and Sasuke, where Django is going to be using his solar powers, obviously, to get through different parts of the tower. And Sasuke is mostly just going to be running around, but Sasuke does have his own dash, the Zero Shift, which uses his built-up dark power. It has the same movement speed as the dash, but it operates more like a partial teleport than a dash. So it can be used to pass through obstacles that are directly in front of you. So we need no sunlight to open Sabata's tower, and some sunlight to open Django's tower. So now, I've also lost runs to this in the next room. I've mentioned when enemies are on a corner, it's essentially random whether you'll hit them. That black slime kills you in 2 hits if you contact it, and it's just random whether you hit it on passing it, so that's nice. I have been on runs that have been very firmly ahead, and then I just hit the black slime, and it's like, well, alright, thanks. I had no control over that. You can't safely knock it out of the way either, because when you hit it, it very aggressively, like, spews out globs of black slime that hit you very hard, so it's like you can't even hit it out of the way safely. It's just an awful, awful enemy. Please move. There we go. Alright. Gonna drop down to the next floor. Gonna use the spear to hit the switch through the black slime. The black slimes are now gonna despawn here, but I'm just gonna push this block and get on this magic circle to switch over to Sasuke. Gonna immediately use a speed nut here. So Sasuke's stats are a lot higher than Django's, but he is wearing very heavy armor, so he actually moves much slower than Django. So by using a speed nut, we're able to get 30 seconds of maximum movement speed with Sasuke. Gonna use 2 of these on different segments of Sasuke's tower. Use the Zero Shift in different spots to go through enemies and obstacles. Use 2 more here with the crows that are in random spots on the floor. Most of the time it's just safer to use the Zero Shift to go through them. Misdirect this one so I can slide along the wall and get outside and activate this panel so that Django can go further up the tower. So this is kind of how this dungeon is structured. Like, the brothers need to do different segments of their own towers in order to enable each other's progress up through the floors. Now that I have a spare inventory slot, I'm going to pick up this healing item. Gonna switch to Earth and Sword to kill this cockatrice for 200 EXP. per enemy at this point for cockatrices is ridiculously good. And I'm going to come back into this screen after resetting the room and kill 3 of these in one. I don't think that's going to... Yeah, I messed up there. Never mind. I'm supposed to knock on the north side of this wall, otherwise the third cockatrice does not get attracted by the sound of the wall knock. Use another one to bring them around here, and cleave them all down. For 600 EXP, which is a massive amount. Like, the mini-bosses coming up are 1,000 each, so it's effectively like getting nearly like another mini-boss's worth of health, all in one. Health, EXP. Refill energy here and switch to Dark. Put on Soul over Earth and put in my stat points. So, if enemies do not have an elemental weakness, then Dark is overwhelmingly the strongest element that you can use to hit them. Because as much as anything else, like Black Django does have the increased attack speed, but additionally, Element Dark also does increase damage if it's nighttime. So with like the attack speed increase and the actual damage increase, Dark is just much, much higher DPS than anything else you have access to. Get the switch for Sabata, switch over to him. Gonna get onto this elevator and wait for this elevator to dock before I use my next speed nut. So if I move correctly, this speed nut will give me enough time for basically this entire segment. It'll have like a couple of seconds left by the time I need to switch back to Django. Or now on the same screen as Django, this is where I just hit that switch. But Sabata's going to go up another floor now. Well, I need to go down a floor before I go up a floor. So now I'm going to go up 2 floors. I was wrong twice. And now we have, very weirdly, there's just an enemy with a key just on its head. Need to destroy the enemy to get the key off its head. Okay, cool. 4 seconds of buff left, so I have just enough time to fire a glob at this switch and then get onto there. So that we can now move forward as Django. So this elevator takes a bit, so I may as well take a health refill while waiting for it. Now we get this nice little maze sequence with both brothers where I'm going to use switches to raise and lower these different coloured blocks. Sabata can just shoot at the switch over there from the magic circle position, which is very convenient, while Django moves forward through this puzzle. And get the rusted switch to enable Django's next segment. So, in a couple of rooms' time, I'm going to be coming to an outdoor screen, this is one of the most difficult positional-based strats to nail in the run. You're going to need to use a moving platform to go through an outdoor sequence, and it needs to move across a bunch of flame jets that are spewing at different times. Normally, you use the bat form to kind of mitigate the risk, because the bat form cannot be knocked off the platform. So even if you get hit by the flame jets, it's not a big deal. But if you don't want to use bat form, you can use some nearly pixel-perfect positioning to just not get hit by the flame jets as you're moving across, and you don't need to spend the time with the bat transformation. So let's see how this goes. Oh, I was not supposed to use a dash there. That was wrong. That should be fine. No, so this is what I mean by that. It looked like I was right on the edge of the platform there, but that was not close enough to the edge to avoid that flame jet. That will be close enough. Literally, how was that not on the edge? Are you serious? Wow, this is being pretty temperamental right now. And then I just try to move before actually docked, which is silly because that doesn't actually help you avoid the flame jet. This is by far the most times I've had difficulty with this strat. Like, this is... Normally, I get this, like, first try without too much difficulty. I don't think that's going to work. No. What is going on here? This is kind of weird. I think I'm just waiting too long there, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think Alright, here we go. This is it. Watch this. Okay, yeah, my problem was timing. That was not a position problem. Yeah, clap for me being useless at doing my strat, that's fine. Like I said, that was not a position problem, that was a timing problem. But it does just go to show how tight the margin actually is on that. And it is not favorable to take a death here in... oh yeah, there's the compass puzzle, by the way. 1 north, did you see that? 1 north. There we go. Use a couple of dashes here. So taking a death as Django in this dungeon ruins Sabata's health and energy for his half of the tower, which is definitely not optimal. Oh, I'm supposed to do 2, whatever. I was supposed to do 2 dashes there, but not a big deal. Use a power nut here to move these blocks. So Sabata has fewer zero shifts that he can now use for his half of the tower, but not a big deal. Okay, so Django's hint panel showed 1 north, and Sabata, once getting indoors, is going to get his own hint panel, which is going to show a different direction. So you get either north or south, and then either east or west. So I had north 1, and I have here east 1. And then you transpose them, so you invert the numbers, but I mean 1, 1 is the same, so it's just 1 north, 1 east. So this block needs to go 1 north, 1 east from this thing in the center. There we go. And then this is going to trigger the next mini-boss, the Axe Plus, which I'm going to be doing as Black Django. I'm going to hit it twice before it gets into position, and then I must hit it no more than 2 times before it swings at me. Okay, and then if you're super fast on the untransform when the boss dies, you have just enough time to get out of the transformation animation before the game just puts you back into Black Django form. Split. I was just muscle memory reflexively reaching for my split key there. And now we are basically at the top of the tower. I'm going to back off the light a little here. I can have no more than 8 sunlight for this screen. These solar walkways, they're buggy and they only work when you have 8 sun or less. Put on a different spread and switch to Sol here. These ghosts are the worst enemies in the game. When they catch you, they randomly scramble your controls. And I do mean randomly. Like, you get caught by them, you have a new set of controls, and it's different every time. If I ever get caught by them, I basically just put the DS down for like 20 seconds and wait for the curse to wear off, because I cannot figure out what my controls are whenever they catch me. It's awful. But they are worth a very healthy amount of EXP each, so just get them while they are there. And doing Django's final puzzle for the tower here, please move that, thank you. Please, alright. Nah, I had that right first time. Oh. Tell your friends at home, the run was world record pace until it wasn't. Like every other run ever done. Put on, yeah, Rising Sun over Frost and just dash it around. So this is the end of Django's tower. So Django's now like, well, what do I do now? Now I just wait for my brother to get here. So now it's just Sabata needs to finish his half of the tower. And only really has the final floor to go. So even though I've got like no energy and no life left, like this is basically the end of Sabata's tower. I just need to flip one more switch and then go outdoors. So go up to the top floor, fire a long range shot for a switch. It's off screen. And then Sabata just joins Django outdoors. So, coming into the big, like, main antagonist, quote-unquote, final boss fight. This isn't the final boss of the game, but this is the, like, main antagonist of the game, Boktai, the Shadow Immortal, like, the leader of the Immortal family. It's going to be, like, the same, essentially, as the vampire fight from before, because he's using Red Ringo's form. Albeit, he's a lot stronger. It's a 2-phase fight, where I'm going to be skipping most of the first phase by using my Rising Sun ability as the fight begins, which is going to deplete my entire energy bar to effectively deploy a nuke, which is going to chunk him for like a quarter of his total HP bar. And then I'm going to need to use a couple of solar nuts to refill energy, and then I have very strict energy routing for the rest of the fight so that I can get through phase 1 quickly and finish phase 2 in a single cycle, which will leave me with basically no energy left and will hopefully save about 15 seconds on not needing to get a second cycle. It also requires me to go for another nearly pixel-perfect position. Also, if you select the first option here, you get an instant bad ending, like the game just ends, you fail, because you choose to join Dain, so don't do that. So there's Rising Sun, we chunk Dain, use 2 solar nuts here, switch to Sol. So the rest of the first fight is pretty elementary, but when the second phase begins, when he's at 50% health, this is, again, this is nearly pixel perfect, what I need to go for, and if you mess it up, you just die instantly. Like other things that I've highlighted, I have had many runs be at good pace to this point, and then it's just, oh, I just didn't quite hit the very precise position, and I just died in one hit. Oh well, try again sometime. Gonna misdirect his attack here. Wait for him to bob up and down, and slash. Alright, this is extremely precise. Those Dark Orbs kill you in one hit, no questions asked. Unfortunately, I needed to take a slight adjustment there, so I didn't quite have time to finish the fight. So I'm just waiting for the next cycle. Whatever. Okay, so ideally you are not waiting for that extra cycle, but I needed to make sure I did not die in one hit there, and I just about lost the time to finish the fight as quick as possible there. But Deathless is still very good for that fight. Like I say, you need to stand as close as possible to Dain to not get hit by his like huge Dark Orb attack. I call it the Ikaruga attack. And yeah, it's really bad news. And if you are too far away, the orbs hit you. If you're too close to him, his physical hitbox hits you, and you have no more than a couple of pixels to stand there safely. So I'm going to leave the coffin behind once again. Just use a warp leaf to leave. Going to save and reset to warp the coffin back to town. And this is going to be the last save and reset sequence, which is going to take us into the final Purify, and then move straight into the final dungeon of the run, Undead Zone, which is a few different floors. It's going to be some pretty like difficult floors back to back, and then a bunch of difficult boss fights back to back. Like, it's the final dungeon, and appropriately, I think on the whole, it is the most difficult dungeon in the run. It doesn't necessarily demand that I do everything perfectly and don't take any deaths, but it does screw up my resource management if I am taking deaths during it. So obviously, aside from it obviously being slower to die, you do want to play Undead Zone as clean as possible in order to, in order to have as many resources as possible for the rest of the run.
Do I have 2 seconds in here to get a quick donation in?
You can, after I highlight that this Purify is, once again, if I get hit during this Purify, I die in one hit. Go ahead.
All right, perfect, thank you. We have £20 from Delty the Techie with the message, oh my god, is that Solar Boy Django from the hit game Mega Man Battle Network 4?
Yeah.
That did go towards Ventus for Kingdoms Hearts 2 and Majima Saga, any % bonus run for Yakuza. And I did just want to point out as well, our friends over at BSG, their submissions for BSG Plus 2026 are now open. So if you would like to go and submit any runs for BSG Plus, you can do that right now. And now back to you, Draco.
So the only thing that I'm going to object to there is Battle Network 4 is not a hit game. What are you talking about? Okay, so Deathless Purify. That was not a particularly fast purification. I played it really safe. The Dark Orbs that are flying around, they just flat out kill you in one hit if they contact you, so you cannot let that happen under any circumstance. And then Ringo sacrifices himself to fully exercise Black Dain. So the whole like plot of this game I kind of mentioned earlier is these immortals are trying to awaken a sleeping primordial being underneath the city, the Ancestor Piece. So the immortals are undead, they're immortal beings. The Ancestor Piece is like neither a living being or an undead being, it's just a primordial eternal being that just always has been. It's neither in a state of death or undeath or anything. So even the immortals are afraid of it, but they believe that it will help them, you know, like end the world and do shonen and anime stuff, so they're trying to reawaken it. And essentially, Dain has just been successful in starting its awakening sequence. Like, we're now getting earthquake tremors because it's starting to awaken under the city. So we now need to go underneath where Spiral Tower was, down into the depths of the Undead Zone. And we need to physically seal up the Ancestor Piece once again. We need to beat it into submission so that it can be resealed up. Like, it can't be killed, but it can be stunned after being beaten into submission. And then we can, like, reseal it up, you know, typical, you know, video game, anime sort of stuff. So, going to turn the sun on again once I gain control here. Going to run straight up to Undead Zone. Previously, we did a shop at this point, but I've already done my shop for the rest of the game. Part of the rerouting for the end of the run was consolidating the shopping so that we can just not do a town backtrack here. Just go straight to the final dungeon. So we get a nice little cutscene here where Sabata's going to use some of his newly awakened like lunar child abilities to open the door to Undead Zone. And we're going to have a few floors back to back. So the first floor, B1, is the only floor where I'm going to have access to a skylight. There is a single skylight halfway through this floor, which is going to let me have a last opportunity to refill energy and health at no cost. Beyond that point, I do not have access to the sun whatsoever. So all I have is the remaining balance in the solar station, which has been building up throughout the entire game based on the amount of sunlight that is being detected. This is also part of the game routing. You need to very carefully use the solar station as a resource, and it fluctuates based on your pace and how much sun exposure you have. So there's a whole bunch of like meta routing going on during any individual run of this game. Like, it's never exactly the same. Gonna put on Frost and Dynamite here to use Dynamite to get this torch. Dash to the end of the room after it detonates and opens the door. Knock on this wall to misdirect that last archer. Gonna need to push these couple of blocks so that I can stand in particular spots. And I'm gonna use Cloud and Spear to push this floating block. Dash around. And Frost to drop it. So this is the last skylight I have. So this is the last skylight that I have, using 8 or lower sun to use the solar walkway. Hit this from behind to stun it, and again hit it from behind to stun it, so that I can move past without being detected. The gimmick of this floor is through all of the rooms that have these patrolling skeletons. If they see you, the door at the end of the room locks. So this is like the only like forced stealth section of the game. You need to not get detected during these rooms. In this room, it doesn't particularly matter. Like, whatever. I'm just leaving. Gonna get the key for the end of the area here. And coming into the first boss of Undead Zone, the Sandworm. So this is another boss, which is, I've had plenty of runs be on good pace here, and then the RNG in this fight can just say no. The Sandworm is going to burrow underground and move around randomly once I deal heavy damage at the start here. It can just decide to randomly move onto your position and then fire rocks out and just tell you to, like, go, like, you know, I don't need to finish that sentence. But I'm alive, thankfully. It also burrows around for a random amount of time, and that was not particularly friendly there. Switch to Cloud again. Okay, that's a totally fine fight. It burrowed around for ages, which lost a bit of time, but it's a deathless fight, so I'm going to count that as a good start to the final dungeon. So we're going to get the key to the next floor here. Gonna stop off at the solar station once I get out here and take a full energy refill. So the value that you see here, this is the amount that I have for the entire rest of the run. So every time I fully refill, that's 150. So I am going to be gradually gaining a little bit back because I have the sun active here. But for the most part, you are on, like at this point, you are running on fumes at this point. Also forgot to do my menuing here, but that's fine. Use Dynamite to do this first torch. We use Dynamite to light that first torch because you need to light all torches at the same time to open the door, but the time limit for this room is actually extremely tight. Like, even for a speed run, it's, if you make a mistake, you generally don't have time to do the torches. Like, from a casual perspective, that's one of the most difficult rooms to just get past because the time limit is very tight. This to do this. Backing off the sun again because I need, there's another solar walkway in the next room, so I need no more than 8 sunlight. Destroy these blocks to get through. And after a couple more rooms, going to be coming into the second boss of the dungeon, the Lich, which is a cloud element enemy, so it's... that was a terrible hit to take. That was actually abysmal. I am dumb. It's weak to Earth. I mean, at this point, obviously, anything kills me in one hit, but we'll see. These lightning orbs move around pretty randomly. They do try and home in on you, but they move around pretty unpredictably. Okay, gonna take a full refill now. I definitely need to refill health and energy now. Normally, I only refill energy here, but I mean, I need to refill health. That's obviously not avoidable. Where are you going? Okay. Gonna move down, yep. Okay, considering how bad of a position I was in starting the fight, I'm very happy that I got through that deathless. The Lich is very difficult, because as you can see, your visibility is significantly compromised during that fight, so that's just another fight where, like, you're tracking multiple things at once. There's lightning orbs flying around. He's walking around. He's summoning skeletons, which act independently. Summoning lightning clouds that track you. Like, there's like 4 things going on at once, and if anything hits you, you die. Like, again, when these fights go smoothly, they look pretty easy, and you're like, hey, this looks like a, you know, pretty reasonable run, but like, God, these fights are not easy to consistently get through. So we're on the ice floor now. The Serpent is the boss of this floor, and is, on the whole, probably the worst fight in the game to consistently get through on consistent pace. This boss can act randomly and can just decide to waste tons of time for no good reason. Also going to use dynamite in a specific spot to knock myself towards the center to half skip a puzzle. This is the only thing in the run that approaches being like a skip. There's no real glitches in the run, and that's the only thing that is close to being a skip in the run. Just using the dynamite to like skip a puzzle there by getting into a spot on the ice floor you're not supposed to be in. Gonna take another full refill here on the solar station. So, like, as you can see, like, yeah, getting pretty low on the reserve energy here. I have just over, like, a full energy bar that I can refill here with 180. And move this way, wait before moving left, so the centipede moves out of the way, so I don't take a hit. So, I'm going to go for, to start this Serpent, another nearly pixel-perfect position to hopefully be able to hit it from the shore with the sword. We used to buy a spear for this fight, but after I did some routing and testing, I figured out, oh, you can just do this fight with a sword. You don't need a spear for this fight. It's just extremely precise. So, I'm going to try and get as close as I can to the ledge. Okay, good. And I moved over the edge. That's fine. The health that I have here, like, taking the health hit here isn't really relevant because at this point, like, more or less anything kills you in one hit here. Well, now I don't have the RNG pattern that I need, so I guess that doesn't really matter. I'm just going to set the dynamite, move away. So while the Serpent is underwater, a dynamite explosion will force it to start jumping around like this, and now it's going to jump around semi-randomly, its tail being the weak point here. This is what I'm actually aiming for to deal damage. So every time it's underwater like this, I'm just setting a new dynamite to make it jump around. Alright, whatever. Yeah, very sensible place for it to jump. Come on, jump this way. Dude! Welcome to running this game. This just happens. Another boss that I've had plenty of runs be on good pace to this point, and then like, oh yeah, this fight just took an additional minute for no good reason, because it was just jumping around in no man's land and I can't hit it. Welcome to Boktai 2. Okay, so, yeah, not deathless, not great, but I have one more healing item, and in the next floor, I do have access to a bit of an unorthodox healing source, so we're definitely still in a finishable position. Like, this hasn't been, like, super clean, but I'm definitely not in a position where I'm screwing myself out of having the resources to finish. Like, you do have room to work with here. So this is now the Flame floor. The boss of this floor is going to be the Lich Plus, which is Flame Element and is weak to Frost. Need to do a couple of puzzles first. Like this, put in my stat points, put Frost over Flame and put Cloud on. I'm going to use Earth to delete the block now. And move on to the panel. So, pretty finicky strat. I'm going to go through it in a couple of rooms here where I'm going to tuck against the wall to make the stone golem roll past me, and then I need to move pretty fast to beat the next stone golem before it runs into me. Alright, fine. That looked like it was pretty comfortable, but that game, the room is lagging really hard, so the margin is a lot tighter than it looks there. Use Frost to extinguish that. I need to put on this and Sleeping Magic, because I need to use Elephant to shoot a shot to hit the switch over there. I do not have the gun, which is something you can pick up after Purifying Dain. You're supposed to have the gun for a couple of puzzles in this dungeon, but we can, strictly speaking, skip them. So I'm going to... yeah, fire around randomly here to break all this solar bamboo. You can leave and re-enter this room to get these crystals to respawn, which have like random bugs inside them. It's health that I really need here. Like, it looks silly that I'm still resetting the room to get resources, but I really want to enter the Lich Plus fight. Thanks, 0. There we go. you really want maximum health to enter the next boss. The energy is fine because there is a solar station before the boss fight. And I have just enough spare energy to be able to refill, especially like after getting all of the solar bamboo bugs there that I just got. And there's one more solar nut that I'm going to get here, as we're passing by here. So I'm going to refill on this solar station before going in. So I have a lot spare there, but it's because I got all of the bugs flying around before. So now here's Lich Plus. This is also very precise. So that is not an accidental hit. That is a scripted hit. You want to walk into the back of the boss in order to damage boost on its body, which puts you in the correct position to just not get hit by this rotating flame attack, which kills you in one hit if it contacts you. So it's well worth taking that hit for 88 in order to avoid what would otherwise be a nearly unavoidable death here. And it trivializes the fight well. It's another fight which, when it goes clean, it looks pretty easy, but like again, it's a very strict method for that fight. Using my last 2 energy restorations here, putting my stat points to reach 99 strength, put on Dark, and moving on to the final floor of the game now. So, the resources I have here, this is the health that I have, this is the energy that I have, this is pretty much all I have for the rest of the game. And if you were eagle-eyed, you will see that I have one more item remaining in my inventory, which I've been holding on to for most of the game so far. So when I entered Dark City first time, about 45 minutes into the run, I picked up a sunscreen at the start of the dungeon, which I have just held onto and not used. So sunscreen is an item you can use in this game, as well as IRL while playing this game, ideally, which prevents Black Django from taking damage to direct sunlight for 60 seconds. The final boss of the run is going to be played with Black Django, but you need sunlight active to be able to fight the final boss. Like, you physically cannot deal damage to the final boss without having the sun active, but Black Django takes damage to the sunlight as well. So we use the sunscreen to gain a 60-second window where Black Django can actually not die in the fight and deal with the final boss. So effectively you're on a soft time limit of 60 seconds for the final boss, which is more than enough time. Like, an average fight is in the region of 30 seconds. Like, it's not a huge deal. But it's typical fare. It's a pretty dangerous fight. I'm going to be going for a lot of very precise hits that don't look particularly threatening, but if you try it yourself, you're like, oh my god, how do you even do this? And so if you know much about different mythologies, or Norse mythology in particular, you'll know that the 4 immortals throughout this game, Dain, Durathor, Daenerys, and Dvalin, are the 4 stags of Norse mythology, nibbling on the world tree Yggdrasil. And you'll also know that one of the central, like, doomsday beasts of Norse mythology is the great serpent Jormungand. And this is the ancestor piece beneath the city. This is the final boss of the run, is Jormungand, who is completely unkillable, but we can only stun it into submission, and then hopefully seal it back up after the fight. So as soon as the fight begins, I'm going to use the sunscreen, which is my last remaining item. So I now have 60 seconds of sun immunity. So the way this fight works is you need to disable his eyes with 3 hits each, which forces the tongue to come out, which is his weak spot. And the reason we use Black Django for this fight is that Black Breath attack really quickly chews through Red Django's health, but Black Django is completely immune to it. And the fight is nearly almost over. This is a product both of using cleave hits to deal very efficient damage, due to him randomly moving into favorable positions, and also the katana being a grossly overpowered weapon. As I've said, like, this is effectively a post-game weapon. You are not really supposed to have something this powerful during the main story. And that is the final boss dealt with. Like, yeah, it goes by pretty fast. The run is not quite over yet. So, alright. Strictly speaking, okay? If my light, my UV flashlight here, if this decides to completely die right now, the run doesn't finish. Because there's a final quick time event where you need to burn Jormungand from inside out by charging sunlight. Obviously, you can't do that without sunlight. So if my light dies right here, right now, the run does not finish, and this is a DNF. But obviously, that's not going to happen. And this is looking like, this is probably going to be a very high 147. That's like the 3rd marathon run in a row that's been like a high 147. What's going on with it? Whatever. All right. My PB is a 1:44.45, so I mean, it's still a very respectable run. Time is coming up quicker than you'd expect as well. This event is only a couple of seconds long. When Jormungand's health reaches 0, this is time. And... time. Oh. Alright, so final debrief. That was a really good run until it wasn't, which is basically all the runs that I do. Like, I have so many promising runs of this game where I'm like, oh, this is the run. This is... I'm never going to see this pace again. And it's like, oh yeah, I died. Alright. This is a really difficult run, but it's a really engaging run. It's really entertaining, and the community for this game is absolutely excellent. Like, everyone says that. Everyone likes their community, but the community for these games, as you'd expect, is very small. It's very tight-knit, and the amount of technical knowledge and dedication per head is ridiculous. Like, any time that I have a question on how does this specific thing work in the game code-wise, we just have, within a few minutes, like, someone's just pulling up data or memory values, and they're like, oh yeah, I charted this out, and here's a graph of how this specific thing works. It's like, it's absurd how much the data competency in this game's community is. So I really do want to thank the people involved in this community, like Dr. Hell, Shanef, Rafi, have been very central figures with helping me out in this game. I would not be anywhere without these guys. Coalescence, the original world record holder, who it took like 8 years for anyone to get close to Koa's time with an entirely new route. There's a thriving Japanese community for this game as well, with people like Hiko Kanbi, Beige, and MT, who has done runs in Japan. I'm really hoping to get this run into RTA in Japan winter in December, and for AGDQ, we'll see what happens, but yeah, that's just to the whims of submission staff. All I can do is hope, and to that end, I'm very grateful to the UKSG submission staff for letting me showcase this run here. I'm very proud of this game and the community for this game. I'm very just pleased with where this run has come, and very grateful for the opportunity to showcase this game to an audience. So thank you guys very much, and I'm going to let you guys get set up for the next game. So yeah, I'll be back sometime, hopefully, but for now, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next game.
Thank you very, very much, Draco. That was an incredible run of Boktai 2. We are now just going to go to a quick intermission whilst we set up for our next game, which is X Mutants.